The cowboy had been searching for a nanny for his baby for 6 months, Apache woman. Now I am here. The sun was rising slowly over the wide, dusty plains when Jack, a rugged cowboy in his late 30s, walked out to the barn with a heavy sigh. His hands were calloused, and his face showed the lines of years spent working under the harsh sun. Yet despite his strength and experience, there was one thing Jack had never been able to handle on his own: raising his baby daughter, Emily. His wife had passed away a year ago, leaving him alone to care for their little girl. Jack loved Emily more than anything in the world, but the truth was simple. He did not know how to be a parent on his own. For 6 long months, Jack had been searching for a nanny. He had traveled from town to town, posted ads at general stores, and even asked friends of friends if they knew anyone trustworthy. Every time someone had come close, it had ended in disappointment. Some women had experience with children but could not handle the hard life of a ranch. Others seemed kind, but they left after only a few days. Each failure weighed on Jack's heart. He tried not to show it, but when the sun set and Emily cried herself to sleep, he felt the heavy burden of his loneliness. Jack would often watch Emily as she slept in her small cradle by the fireplace. Her tiny hands curled into fists, her soft breath making gentle whispers in the quiet room. He thought about how different things might have been if his wife were still alive. She had been the one to care for Emily when he was out on the ranch, always knowing just how to soothe her cries. Now, Jack was left with diapers, bottles, and endless sleepless nights. One morning, after another long night of Emily crying, Jack mounted his horse and rode into the nearby town. He needed to post another ad, hoping that maybe, just maybe, someone would answer this time. The town was small, with wooden buildings lining the dusty streets and horses tied outside the general store. Jack tied his horse and walked inside, his boots echoing on the wooden floor. He handed the shopkeeper a note. Wanted, experienced nanny for infant. Must handle ranch life. But every time he picked up Emily, the weight of his responsibilities hit him again. He loved her with all his heart, but he was only one man and he could only do so much. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Jack's hope began to fade. Some nights he would sit on the porch, watching the stars, thinking about how different life had become. He remembered the days when he and his wife would talk late into the night, planning for the future and laughing at small jokes. Those memories were now bittersweet reminders of what he had lost. Then, one day, as the wind blew gently across the plains, something changed. A woman appeared at the edge of town, calm and confident. Her hair was dark and her eyes held a quiet strength. She walked with purpose, and when Jack first saw her, he felt a strange sense of curiosity. She introduced herself as Ayana, an Apache woman. There was something about her presence that immediately felt different from anyone else who had come before. Ayana had experience raising children in her own family and helping with household chores, but she had never worked on a ranch like Jack's. She approached him with respect, yet her voice carried a quiet authority. "I heard you are looking for someone to help with your baby," she said. "Now I am here." She did not seem afraid of the ranch or the hard work it required. For the first time in months, Jack felt a small spark of hope. He allowed her to stay temporarily, though he was cautious. Jack showed her the house, the barn, and the routines he had established for Emily. Yana watched carefully, learning the patterns of the ranch and the needs of the baby. At first, there was tension. Jack was a man used to doing everything on his own, and he was not sure he could trust someone new so easily. Yana, on the other hand, was respectful but independent. She did not seek approval constantly, but she showed her skill through quiet actions. Emily, too, was wary at first. The baby reached out to Jack instinctively, her small hands grasping his shirt as he picked her up. But Ayana had a gentle way about her. She sang softly, rocked Emily in her arms, and soon the baby began to smile at her. Jack watched this transformation with amazement. It was a small thing, but it meant so much. Days turned into weeks, and Ayana became more comfortable with the routines of the ranch. She knew how to feed Emily, how to calm her when she cried, and how to keep the house organized. Jack observed quietly from a distance, sometimes helping, sometimes stepping back to let Ayanna take charge. He could feel the tension in his shoulders easing for the first time in months. Evenings on the ranch became different. Instead of the lonely silence that had filled the house, there was now a sense of quiet harmony. Emily laughed more, Jack slept better, and the chores of the ranch seemed less overwhelming. Ayanna's presence did not just help with the practical tasks, it brought warmth and balance back into their lives. Jack still had moments of doubt. He wondered if it was possible to trust someone so quickly, to let them into his life and the life of his child. But every time he saw Emily smile or heard her laughter, he knew he had made the right choice. There was a feeling of relief he had not experienced in a long time. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low behind the hills, Jack sat on the porch, watching Ayanna rock Emily gently in her arms. The baby's soft giggles filled the air, and the sound seemed to chase away the shadows of the past. Jack felt a quiet gratitude that was almost overwhelming. He had spent 6 months searching, hoping, and fearing failure, and now, at last, there was someone who could care for Emily the way she needed. Ayanna looked up at Jack and smiled. "She is happy," she said simply, "and so are you." He realized that finding a nanny was not just about hiring someone to care for Emily. It was about finding someone who could bring peace and stability back into their lives. Ayanna was that person, and her presence marked a turning point he had almost given up hope of ever seeing. That night, Jack lay in bed listening to the soft breathing of Emily in the next room. For the first time in months, he felt a sense of calm. The long search had ended, and a new chapter in their lives had begun. Ayanna's arrival was more than just the end of a search. It was the start of a small, quiet family where trust, care, and love could grow. As he drifted to sleep, Jack whispered a small prayer of thanks. He knew that the journey ahead would still have challenges, but with Ayanna there, he no longer felt alone. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that Emily's laughter and happiness would be a constant reminder that hope could return, even after the hardest of times. The days passed slowly on the ranch, but life felt lighter than it had in a long time. Emily's laughter now filled the house, and Jack no longer felt the constant weight of worry pressing down on him. Ayanna had settled in, and her calm presence brought a sense of balance to the once lonely home. She moved through the rooms with quiet confidence, managing chores and caring for Emily without fuss. Jack observed her often, amazed at the ease with which she adapted to ranch life. At first, Jack still tried to do everything himself. He would insist on feeding Emily, changing her diapers, and handling the household tasks alongside Ayanna, but he soon realized that trying to do it all was unnecessary. Ayanna had her own ways, simple but effective, and Emily responded to her with joy. Slowly, Jack began to let her take the lead. He noticed how Emily's eyes would light up when Ayanna spoke softly to her or sang a small song in the evenings. Those moments reminded him of the gentle care his late wife had given, and he felt a quiet gratitude that someone like Ayanna had come into their lives. The bond between Jack and Ayanna grew in small, subtle ways. They worked together in the fields, tending to the horses and mending fences. Ayanna never complained, and she had a way of teaching Jack new methods without making him feel criticized. Sometimes, she would show him how to rock Emily in a way that soothed her faster, or how to prepare her bottle so she would eat calmly. Jack listened carefully, following her guidance with growing respect. One afternoon, a storm appeared suddenly on the horizon. Dark clouds rolled over the plains and the wind began to howl. Jack could see the danger approaching the ranch. He called for Ayanna, and together they worked quickly to secure the horses, tie down loose equipment, and prepare the house for the heavy rain. Emily, still small and fragile, needed special care. Jack held her tightly while Ayanna moved with calm efficiency, making sure everything was safe. The storm raged through the night, rain lashing against the windows and thunder shaking the ground. Jack felt fear creep in, but Ayana's steady presence calmed him. She whispered to Emily, rocking her gently, and Jack watched as his daughter's eyes slowly closed, her breathing steady despite the chaos outside. It was the first time Jack realized that Ayana was more than just a nanny. She was a protector, someone he could trust with his daughter and his home. After the storm passed, the ranch was a mess. Trees had fallen, fences were broken, and the barn roof had some damage. Jack felt the weight of the work ahead, but Ayana was undeterred. She organized the cleanup efficiently, guiding Jack step by step, making even the hardest work feel manageable. Emily played nearby, safe and happy, and Jack felt a deep sense of relief. He understood now that life would always have challenges, but with Ayana's help, they could face them together. Days turned into weeks, and the quiet routine of the ranch became a comforting rhythm. Emily thrived under Ayana's care. She learned new things every day, from waving her tiny hands to recognizing the sound of horses' hooves. Jack noticed how much Emily looked for Ayana's smile and guidance, and it warmed his heart. Even the small things, like Emily crawling across the floor to reach Ayana, or clapping her hands when she saw her favorite toy, became symbols of the love and trust forming in their home. Jack also learned new things about himself. He discovered patience he never knew he had, and he began to appreciate the strength of teamwork. Ayana never asked for praise, but her quiet confidence inspired him. He realized that being a parent did not mean doing everything alone. It meant knowing when to accept help and trust those around him. One evening, Jack sat on the porch, Emily in his arms, while Ayana prepared dinner inside. The sky was painted with the colors of sunset, and the ranch felt peaceful for the first time in years. Jack looked at Ayana as she moved gracefully through the kitchen and felt a rush of gratitude. He remembered the long, lonely months of searching, the frustration of failed attempts, and the fear of not finding someone capable to care for Emily. Now, all those worries seemed far away. Ayana had not only helped him care for Emily but had brought a sense of family back into their lives. Jack decided it was time to acknowledge what Ayana meant to them. One afternoon, after feeding Emily, he approached her carefully. "Ayana," he said, his voice quiet but firm, "I want you to stay. Not just as Emily's caretaker, but as part of our family." There was a new sense of security in the home, a feeling that they were no longer just surviving but truly living. Jack found himself smiling more often, laughing quietly at Emily's innocent antics, and even sharing small jokes with Ayana. The connection they had formed went beyond work or responsibility. It was the beginning of a true partnership. Emily began to recognize the patterns of love and care surrounding her. She would reach for Ayana in the morning, giggle when Jack tickled her, and clap her hands in delight at the simple joys of life on the ranch. The house, once filled with silence and worry, now echoed with laughter and warmth. Jack realized that the journey of finding a nanny had been about more than just help with Emily. It had been about finding someone who could bring stability, trust, and love into their lives. Ayana's presence reminded him that family could be formed in different ways, through care, respect, and shared moments of joy. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack, Emily, and Ayana sat together on the porch. Emily, tired from her day of play, rested in Ayana's arms while Jack gently held her tiny hand. The wind whispered softly across the plains, and the ranch seemed to breathe with them. In that moment, Jack felt a deep sense of peace. He thought back to the long months of searching, the uncertainty, and the fear of failure. And now, looking at the two people who had become his family, he knew that every challenge had been worth it. Ayana had come into their lives not just as a nanny, but as someone who had restored hope, love, and happiness to a home that had once felt empty. As night fell, Emily slept peacefully between them, and Jack felt the warmth of family he had thought he would never know again. He realized that sometimes, life brings unexpected blessings at the exact moment they are needed. Ayana's arrival had been that blessing, a quiet miracle that changed everything. From that day forward, life on the ranch was different. Jack was no longer alone, and Emily thrived in the love and care that surrounded her. Gianna became an inseparable part of their lives, teaching them that family is not only about blood but about trust, loyalty, and shared moments of joy. Together, they faced each day with courage, hope, and a sense of belonging that had been missing for far too long. And so, the cowboy who had searched for 6 months finally found what he had been looking for all along: someone who could care for his child, bring peace to his home, and become a part of their family. Emily's laughter continued to echo across the plains, a living reminder that love and hope can arrive when least expected, and that sometimes the most important journeys are the ones that lead us back to connection and family.